Hi, welcome back. This is session 6 of a reading. This is Mrs. Van Upperen. What we're going to talk about today is seeing big ideas in reading and pulling out those small details. We're going to reference Tiger Rising and also the mentor text that we're reading now, Number the Stars. We're going to start our mini lesson today. I'm going to actually start by reading, and I want you to listen, and I want you to ask yourself as I'm reading, what is this really about? How does it fit with other parts of the story that you've already listened to? What are important details that they've mentioned and why? And what is the character learning about life as they go along? Okay. So Anne-Marie eased the bedroom door opened quietly, only a crack, and peeked out. Behind her, Ellen was sitting up, her eyes wide. She could see Mama and Papa in their night clothes moving about. Mama held a lighted candle, but as Anne-Marie watched, she went to the lamp and switched it on. It was so long a time since they had dared to use the strictly rationed electricity after dark that the light in the room seemed startling to Anne-Marie. Watching through the slightly open bedroom door, she saw her mother look automatically to the blackout curtains, making certain that they were tightly drawn. Papa opened the front door to the soldiers. "This is the Johanssons' apartment," a deep voice asked the question loudly, in the terribly accented Danish. "Our name is on the door, and I see you have a flashlight," Papa answered. "What do you want? Is something wrong?" "I understand you are a friend of your neighbors." "The Rosens, Mrs. Johansson," the soldier said angrily. "Sophie Rosen is my friend, that is true," Mama said quietly. "Please, could you speak more softly? My children are asleep." "Then you will be so kind as to tell me where the Rosens are." He made no effort to lower his voice. "I assume they are home, sleeping. It is 4 a.m. after all," Mama said. Anne-Marie heard the soldier stalk across the living room, across the kitchen. From her hiding place in the narrow sliver of open doorway, she could see the heavy uniformed man, a holstered pistol at his waist, in the entrance to the kitchen, peering in toward the sink. Another German voice said, "The Rosens' apartment is empty. We are wondering if they might be visiting their good friends, the Johanssons." "Well," said Papa, moving slightly so that he was standing in front of Anne-Marie's bedroom door, and she could see nothing except the dark blur of his back. "As you see, you are mistaken. There is no one here but my family." "You will not object if we look around." The voice was harsh, and it was not a question. "It seems we have no choice," Papa replied. "Please don't wake my children," Mama requested again. "There is no need to frighten little ones." The heavy-booted feet moved across the floor again and into the other bedroom. A closet door opened and closed with a bang. Anne-Marie eased her bedroom door closed silently. She stumbled through the darkness to the bed. "Ellen," she whispered urgently, "take your necklace off." Ellen's hands flew to her neck. Desperately, she began to unhook the tiny clasp. Outside the bedroom door, the harsh voices and heavy footsteps continued. "I can't get it open," Ellen said frantically. "I never take it off. I can't even remember how to open it." Anne-Marie heard a voice just outside the door. "What is here?" "Shh," her mother replied. "My daughter's bedroom. They are now sound asleep." "Hold still," Anne-Marie commanded. "This will hurt." She grabbed a little chain, yanked with all her strength, and broke it. As the door opened and light flooded into the bedroom, she crumpled into her hand and closed her fingers tightly. Terrified, both girls looked up at the 3 Nazi officers who had entered the room. One of the men aimed a flashlight around the bedroom. He went to the closet and looked inside. Then, with a sweep of his gloved hand, he pushed to the floor several coats and a bathrobe that hung from pegs on the wall. There was nothing else in the room except a chest of drawers, the blue decorated trunk in a corner, and a heap of Kirsty's dolls piled in a small rocking chair. The flashlight beam touched each thing in return. Angrily, the officer turned toward the bed. "Get up," he ordered. "Come out here." Trembling, the 2 girls rose from the bed and followed him, brushing past the 2 remaining officers in the doorway to the living room. Anne-Marie looked around. These 3 uniformed men were different from the ones on the street corners. The Soldiers were often young, sometimes ill at ease, and Anne-Marie remembered how the giraffe had, for a moment, let his harsh pose slip and had smiled at Kirsty. But these men were older and their faces were set with anger. Her parents were standing beside each other, their faces tense, but Kirsty was nowhere in sight. Thank goodness that Kirsty slept through almost everything, and if they had wakened her, she would be wailing, or worse, she would be angry, and her fists would fly. Your names, the officer barked. Anne-Marie Johansson, and this is my sister. Quiet! Let her speak for herself. Your name, he said, glaring at Ellen. Ellen swallowed. Lise, she said, and cleared her throat. Lise Johansson. The officer stared at them grimly. Now, Mama said in a strong voice, you have seen that we are not hiding anything. May my children go to bed? The officer ignored her. Suddenly, he grabbed a handful of Ellen's hair. Ellen winced. He laughed scornfully. You have a blonde child sleeping in the other room, and you have this blonde daughter. He gestured toward Anne-Marie with his head. Where did you get the dark-haired one? He twisted the lock of Ellen's hair from a different father. From the milkman? Papa stepped forward. Don't speak to my wife in such a way. Let go of my daughter, or I will report you for such treatment. Or maybe you got her someplace else, the officer continued with a sneer. From the Rosens. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Anne-Marie, watching in panic, saw her father move swiftly to a small bookcase and take out a book. She saw that he was holding the family photograph album. Very quickly, he searched through its pages, found what he was looking for, and tore out 3 pictures from 3 separate pages. He handed them to the German officer, who released Ellen's hair. You will see each of my daughters, each with their own name written on the photograph, Papa said. Anne-Marie knew instantly which photographs he had chosen. The album had many snapshots, all the poorly focused pictures of school events and birthday parties, but it also contained a portrait taken by a photographer of each girl as a tiny infant. Mama had written in her delicate handwriting the name of each baby daughter across the bottom of those photographs. She realized, too, with an icy feeling, why Papa had torn them from the book. At the bottom of each page, below the photograph itself, was written the date, and the real Lise Johansson had been born 21 years earlier. Kirsten Elizabeth, the officer read, looking at Kirsty's picture. He let the photograph fall to the floor. Anne-Marie, he read next, glanced at her and dropped the second photograph. Lise Margaret, he read finally, and stared at Ellen for a long, unwavering moment. In her mind, Anne-Marie pictured the photograph that he had held, the baby, wide-eyed, propped against a pillow, her tiny hand holding a silver teething ring, her bare feet visible below the hem of an embroidered dress, the wispy curls, dark. The officer tore the photograph in half and dropped the pieces on the floor. Then he turned, the heels of his shiny boots grinding into the pictures, and left the apartment. Without a word, the other 2 officers followed. Papa stepped forward and closed the door behind him. Anne-Marie relaxed and clenched fingers at her right hand, which still clutched Ellen's necklace. She looked down and saw that she had imprinted the Star of David into her palm. So there are lots of things that we can take away from what I just read. What I want you to understand is that we want to take the author's big idea and the small moments they created and understand them. So this small moment that I just read to you ended with the soldiers, the Nazi soldiers are in here and they are protecting their friend who is Jewish. And the Star of David, the necklace, is clasped in her hand, and she's hanging onto her friend's necklace. And what do you think that would represent? The Star of David, and she's holding it so tight. Those things could mean several things. One, it could be, normally I'd have you talk in turn, but I want you to really be thinking, it could mean that all of their world is turning upside down and everything is trapped in her hand, and she's protecting the Star of David, her Jewish friend, And that's pretty much what that represents. There's so many other meanings that you can take away from that. That's like when we read The Tiger Rising, we were able to understand that Rob's mom passed away, and he had all of his feelings inside. He kept everything in, and they always would refer to the suitcase as the symbol of his, they used the suitcase to symbolize his feelings, that he was pretty much, all of his feelings were trapped inside of his body, and the rash actually represented that they were slowly coming out. And when Sistine became his friend, they would, she was able to open that suitcase a little bit more, which was actually his feelings, and get him to understand the severity of, or the sadness that he felt about his mom dying. And all of those little things authors choose for a reason to put into their stories, so we as readers can really grasp an understanding. So in Number of the Stars, this little girl, these two little girls are in their bedroom, and her parents, the Rosens, are gone, and their whole life has changed upside down. And she has this friend, and the friend was able to just pull this necklace off of her, and that represented her safety, and keeping it closed within her hand. So there's a lot of things that we can take away. So I want you to really think when you're reading today, and from now on, when you're reading books, what is that author wanting us to understand about this big idea? And what small idea or what small moment are we taking away from it? It's been fun to do. So we talked about the big ideas and the messages in the Number of the Stars. There's also another one that I wanted to mention. There are cupcakes that were mentioned in the beginning. The pink cupcake. And Christy keeps mentioning the pink cupcake and wanting those pink cupcakes. And it's probably representing or a symbol of things they can't have or things that they will have in the future. So there's so many things we can, just by that one cupcake that the author, placed in his story, we can take away so many things from it. So many small moments, so many small ideas from that one item. So I want you to start doing that while you're reading. What is the purpose of that item? Thinking of Tiger Rising and the Number of the Stars as you read and listen on, and as you read on today. Think about the passage we just read. I want you to, none of these really apply to us right now because we're not really working in small groups, but I want you to think about these ideas as we go along and as we read, like I mentioned before. The anchor chart that I wanted to refer back to, you have this also in your packet, thinking deeply about important passages in a book. What is significant about this part of the story? Again, the purpose. How does this part fit with an earlier part? And how does it connect to what the whole story is really about? Why might the author have written in this particular way, including these details or words? And what is the character learning about life, the world? What am I learning? I think the girls are learning that life is changing and they're not as safe as they thought they were. And just one small necklace could have given away that she was who they were looking for. So what I'm going to do then is, when I look in conference with you via virtual, I'm looking through the documents and stuff online in Classroom, I'm going to be looking for you to maybe make a list of things, small moments or symbols that you have recognized in your own story that you're reading. And those are, the symbols are objects that may mean something deeper. I want you to maybe list 2 or 3 things that you've noticed that you're reading, and tell me a little bit about why you think the author put them in. What were some of the reasons behind the decision to add those to their story? Have a good evening. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Love you guys. Bye.